So Ford makes this standard, meets this standard for the 1993, which we know isn't enough to protect people in cars. And Ford knows it's not enough to protect people in cars because they protect their own drivers a lot more. They have, when they have the test driving situation, they have a lot more protections. And I know that, in fact, the jury even asked that question. Well, aren't they supposed to do that because the test drivers are going, pushing the outer limits of the vehicle and testing components of the vehicle? Well, sure, that's proven. But it also shows two things that are very important. One, it shows that they know how to make a vehicle safe if they want to. Two, it shows that roof deformation is important. Because if roof deformation were not important, why would they have roll bars? Three, it shows that keeping a seatbelt that keeps you in your seat is important. Because that's the type of protection that they give to their test drivers. And the fourth thing that it proves, and we're going to have, I'll try if I have time to show you some actual quotes that we got from this trial. But I'll go back if I have time to do it. Remember when I asked Dr. Deborah Marth? She used to work at Ford, and she's a biomechanical engineer. It was Ford's first witness. Don't you agree that the passengers in Ford vehicles should be given the same type of safety that your test drivers get under similar circumstances? Remember what her answer was? Yes, absolutely, yes. I agree with that. Now, Ford does this tire blowout test at the worldwide proving grounds. And we know, remember Al Darrell, Ford's corporate guy, worked there 30-something years, bleeds Ford's colors, company man. He told us that the tire blowout test that Ford does is a real-world test. It's not pushing the outer limits. It's not pushing the vehicle to its design beyond its capacity. It's not testing new products. It's testing a vehicle like the Aerostar minivan, like the one Julian Felipe was in, at 50 mile an hour, basically highway speeds, and they put it on some spikes and they blow out a tire. And they want to see if they can keep it under control. Now, what do we know? And I'll show you some of these documents later. We know this. When they do this tire blowout test, the test track requires them to have a roll bar. Why? Why? That's just like any consumer, just like any person driving a car, just like any person driving the Ford Aerostar van, just like Mirta Felipe, Julian's mom, had a tire blowout. Same circumstance. So under Deborah Marth's standard, Mirta Felipe and Julian should have been given a roll bar. They had a tire blowout. They didn't have the protection. Julian broke his leg. That's the Ford standard. And we also know from Ford, because this is something that Al Darrell told us, and Mr. Caulfield also told us, their engineer, rolling over and having the roof deform, having a person break their neck, that's a hazard. It's a hazard. And Ford knows that. They've known it for years. Remember that when we asked a lot of their witnesses, you've known for years you've known that you can be in this minivan or in a light truck and roll over, wearing your seatbelt, and you can break your neck. You've known that for years. Yeah, we've known it for years. You've known it since the 70s. Yes. Since the 80s. Yes. You've known it for years. Yes. You didn't do anything to stop that from happening or prevent that from happening or minimize that. Oh, no, not really. Now, what was the duty that Ford had for its own engineers? What was it? One, when you spot a hazard, engineer it out. Engineer it out. Two, if you can't engineer it out, what do you got to do? Guard against it. Remember that? Guard against it. Three, if you can't guard against it, then what? You warn. You warn about it. Did Ford do that? They're sitting there with that knowledge, year after year after year after year, selling vans, making money, telling people great vans, It's great for your family. It's going to keep you, big or small, safe. And what did they fix the problem? Did they guard against it, or did they warn? No, no, no. What does that mean? Negligence, 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 negligence. What else does it mean? That's not a mistake, folks. There's mistakes. I made a mistake. I was negligent. I didn't use reasonable care. I failed to use reasonable care. Mistake. Here's something different. It's like corporate policy. Well, what do our documents show? Oh, well, we've known since 1968 that if a person is seatbelt, that they're going to be sitting upright and they're going to be at an unjust, unfair disadvantage to suffer serious injuries in a rollover. We've got recommendations for roll bars and roll cages to be built into the cars in the 60s into the 70s. What are they doing about it? Nothing. Going to the 90s, we got a roof that's weaker than what was made in the 30s. We got a roof that's weaker than what was made in the 60s. We got a roof that's weaker than the RSV car and the Ford sedan, even though they know their cars are going to roll over. With a seatbelt, think about this. There's no safety standard for a seatbelt. It's all on Ford's judgment. A seatbelt that they know in a rollover situation is going to give 4 inches. Just rolling over. 4 inches. It's going to give 4 inches. So it puts you right on the roof. Person. Right on the roof. They know that. This is America's engineering at its worst. Remember Apollo 13? Remember Apollo 13? The astronauts went up and they had there was a like meteorite shower or something, and it damaged the rocket as it was going to the moon. And we're all, as a nation, we're all really worried about them. And we had those NASA engineers. The plan was they all sat around the table and they said, "Wow, we got 3 guys up there, 3 guys that may not make it back. 3 American lives up there that may not make it back." Their carbon monoxide was coming in because the filter was broken. They didn't have enough fuel to make it back. They all sat around the table, and the chief engineer comes in and says, "Dump everything that's in that space capsule on this table." And they dumped it onto the table. They said, "We are not going to leave here until we solve this problem, until we fix it, until we figure out how we get back our men safely." And within 24 hours, folks, they solved the problem. They solved the problem. They came up with a little, they told them, you use the tape, use the duct tape, use the box, and create the filter. Shut off all these things, and you'll make it back. When you start entering into the Earth's atmosphere, your shields are going to be a problem. You're going to have to shut everything off and come in manually. And they brought it back. That was like a day or 2 problem solving. Compared to Ford, since 1968, they have known that their vehicles have weak roofs and that their seat belts will not hold the person in. And what have they done about it? What have they done about it? Nothing. Defend the lawsuits. That's what we're going to do. We're going to defend the lawsuits. We're going to pay our experts millions and millions and millions of dollars. And we're going to defend these lawsuits. We are going to pass on the problem. We're not going to fix it, we're going to pass it on. And then as people get injured, we'll go ahead and we'll handle those lawsuits on a case-by-case basis. That's what we're going to do. And you heard some of it. They said, well, it's only 3%. Well, it turns out 3% is only fatalities. Only 3%. Doesn't matter to Ford, because that's not Ford's neck that broke. So they figured they weren't going to spend $20 to fix the roof and less than $12 to fix the seatbelt, because it wasn't a high enough percent.